Disclaimer. To the Pharisees and Karens out there.
How dare you!
All guests on this show do not reflect the opinions of the host. The purpose of this show is to have interesting conversations, stretch our minds, and grow.
Not what we want!
If you are looking for an echo chamber, viewer and listener discretion
is advised.
You talk about extreme.
What is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we're about to fill it up.
Torches high.
Look at it from a different perspective.
Hey guys, what is happening and what is up? Hold out your glass, because we are about to fill it up. Welcome to the Prometheus Lens Podcast, the place where the conversations are always enlightening. I'm your host, Doc Brown, and here we like to use the allegory of the Prometheus Lens to take a second look at everything. Hey guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the hero's journey. Be sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to flick that bell so you get notifications on all of our new content. Well, hey guys, man, I got a good one lined up for you. This is a man that I met through brother David Paxton. This is a writer, a filmmaker, a researcher, an explorer, and me and this man will probably talk close to an hour pre-roll. So we're kind of kindred spirits, so I'm really excited to see where this conversation goes and some of the cool stories and legends and stuff this guy has just dug up here recently, because he's working on some documentaries that are in the works and should be out pretty soon. But I'd like to welcome to the show for the first time, first of many hopefully, Nestor Arce.
So it just makes you think, well, if they're finding this kind of stuff in America, then what else are they finding in Puerto Rico? I mean, they've already found the Nazario Collection, and who knows what else is out there that has yet to be discovered. You can go into like lost treasures. Some people, actually, there's this island next to Puerto Rico called Culebra and Vieques. There's two islands. So these two islands, smaller islands, are next to Puerto Rico. They still believe that there's lost treasure over there as well. So that's really interesting. So if you want to go digging up for some treasure, I feel like that's be a good place to start.
Oh yeah, man. Now with our pre-roll talk, we were talking a little bit about Bigfoot, and you said there's even Bigfoot stories down there. Now that blew my mind. Yeah.
So Puerto Rico has its own version of the Bigfoot. And I actually found this out before we started recording. So I'm in touch with a man down there. His name is Jorge Martin Miranda. We typically call him Jorge Martin. And Jorge Martin, if you know Puerto Rican culture, this dude is huge. And he was the guy who was the main investigator, one of the main investigators. I would say he was the main one, though, back in the 90s when the whole chupacabra craze was happening on the island. He was the guy who was like at the forefront. He was like making documentaries, and he was reporting on all of the attacks that were happening on farms with animals being drained of blood, basically being disfigured, dismantled. It's still happening now, which is crazy. He actually just reported 2 days ago that there was an attack in the town where I'm from, in Calle, which is really crazy. So this is the guy you want to talk to when it comes to any sort of like UFO stuff. So from him, I actually learned, because I was doing research, is there Bigfoot like in Puerto Rico? It's really interesting because they have their own version of the Bigfoot. And I think they call it the Yetioid. The reason they call it the Yetioid, it's because it's a cross between what they believe to be an alien being and a Bigfoot. So these are, bipedal creatures. They're about 4 to 8 feet tall. So they're in varying degrees and various sizes. But they're built like how you would think a Sasquatch would be built. So they have red eyes. They're very hairy all over. And there's been stories of these things going around and attacking, very similar to how the chupacabra attacks animals, just feeding off their blood, disfiguring these animals and just leaving them out to dry. The crazy thing is that when they do find these animals, they're completely like dry of blood. So there's it's really crazy how this is happening. There have been rumors, though, that potentially these could be satanic sacrifices. Puerto Rico is just a huge hotbed of Santeria, Palo Mayombe. It's a big mix of a lot of old African pagan worship and religion and customs that migrated to Puerto Rico during the slave trade. And so a lot of people believe, because these traditions are still being practiced and were carried down from back then, that this is what it could potentially be. But when you really look into some of these photos and just read some of these reports from these eyewitnesses that are just finding their livestock dead on their farms, it's just really weird stuff, really morbid stuff.
Yeah, especially too. I mean, like if you're a farmer and something's attacking your cattle or your sheep or whatever the case may be. I mean, that's your livelihood. That's how you make your money. So not only is it spooky and scary, it's hitting them in their wallet. You know what I mean?
Between the one I just shared and the one that happened to me at 5 years old, it's hard. I mean,
like the myths and legends and stuff that you had found of the area.
Oh yeah, well, I think it's all connected. I think it's really hard to choose one or the other, because as I've looked in Puerto Rico specifically, there's this one thing that I found, which I'm trying to get some consultation on, which I have shown to David, and he was pretty blown away by. So I don't want to go too much into it, because it is like a big spoiler, and I do want to reveal it towards the end of the series. But I may have found something really, really fascinating that it really blew me away and really changed my concept of not just the city of San Juan, but just Puerto Rico, as a whole. So in time, you'll get to see that. But from what I've been doing research on, what I've shown David, and I'm actually going to be consulting with a lot of other people. A lot of people don't know about this, which is really crazy.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about at the start of the show. That's something that I'm ignorant on. I've not really looked into. But like you said, that's a region that is heavily overlooked. And it's has to be ripe full of supernatural activity and legends and lore, and like you said, just put the spiritual stuff just to the side, but just all the pirates and the stealing of gold, and I'm sure there's plenty of stories of pirates crossing each other and killing each other and hiding the treasure and died before they came back, and their spirits, you have all those kind of cool stories throughout the world. So I'm sure you had found some in your home country too.
Yeah. As I said, Puerto Rico is such a beautiful country, but it is very underrated. And unfortunately, there's a lot of corruption there, and there's just a lot of just not so great infrastructure. Till this day, there's a huge issue with the electrical system. Like something could just
that hurricane a few years back.
Yeah, I was actually in the middle of one of them when I was filming. Actually, I'm going to show it off in the second episode, where I actually went out during the middle of this hurricane, and I was just shooting, and I was with a buddy of mine at the time, and we were just like locked up in the hotel, and something told me, look, we're in Puerto Rico. I don't care if there's like asteroids coming. We're going to enjoy this trip. And I got some work to do. So I took out my camera, put on my backpack, put on my rain jacket, or how do you call those? The parkas, right?
Yeah, poncho.
The ponchos, there you go. So I put on my poncho and we just headed out. And sure enough, I ended up running into probably one of the most fascinating stories I've heard from a local there. So you will see that in episode 2, actually illustrated by this really cool artist from Egypt called Huda Amien. So you'll kind of get to see that story of what it is that I discovered during that little excursion that I took in the middle of the hurricane. And it's fascinating because they really just set the tone for the rest of the episode. And just to give people a backdrop, a little backdrop of what the episode is going to be about. It's going to be exploring the spiritual world of Puerto Rico. So we're going to be diving into Taino gods. We're going to be diving into local legends, haunted places. We're going to be looking into just maybe even UFO stuff and how that is potentially connected to the significance of Old San Juan, because there is a spiritual significance to it.
Oh, yeah, it's all interconnected. Well, if you don't care, I know you had released that first episode, but had taken it down. But I recall one of the stories was the Devil's Century box.
Yeah.
You care to tell that to the listeners?
Sure.
Hey, guys, it's no secret that every single day your dollar loses its value. If a man invested $1,000 in silver in the 60s, today that same $1,000 would have magically turned into almost $30,000. Silver and gold only continues to increase in value. If you have a 401k or money sitting in savings, that is just a number in a computer system that is one EMP or hack away from being deleted forever. I've recently teamed up with Cornerstone Assets and Metals and started investing in gold and silver myself. And I highly encourage the listeners, if you have money in savings just sitting there, invest it in hard, tangible assets. The same thing with your 401ks. Take a 20 to 30% cut of that 401k, that number in a computer system, and invest into hard, tangible assets that is proven to only increase in value. Be sure to check out the link in the description or the number on the screen, and be sure to tell them that Doc Brown from Prometheus Lens sent you. Torches high, guys. Are you a hunter, a hiker, or just an outdoor enthusiast? Well, if you are, you know that good quality gear is hard to come by. And finding all-American made is like finding Bigfoot in the woods. Hence the name of Squatch Survival Gear. Head on over to squatchsurvivalgear.com. Use the code PLP10 for 10% off store-wide.
So yeah, that was a really fascinating story, because I would say that's even another point in my life that really just set this trajectory for why I'm doing the documentary now. When I first heard about the Devil's Century box, I had just come from youth group, church youth group, and I know this is gonna sound really weird, but I would come back from church youth group on Friday nights, and then I would come home, I would just lay in my bed, and I would turn on the History Channel. And on the History Channel, I don't know if you remember this, but they would give like a little marathon on the show called Haunted History. And Haunted History would basically visit different cities across America, and it would basically just recount like the haunted history of like certain cities or monuments or just things like that. So one really late Friday night, I was just laying in bed. It must have been like 1, 2 in the morning, and they had done an episode on Puerto Rico, and I'm like, I have to watch this. Like, this is cool. I wonder what they have in Puerto Rico. Lo and behold, one of the segments that they had on that episode was the Devil's Century box. This is probably one of my favorite legends from Puerto Rican lore, because it's just really fast. I don't know why. It just captivated me when I was a kid.
Yeah, and a century box is basically, for those that don't know, is like a guard's watchtower.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it is a guard's watchtower. And so this guard's watchtower is basically considered the oldest part of the, I want to say it's called the Castillo Christoval, which is the St. Christopher Fort in Puerto Rico, which I believe it's considered the largest fort, Spanish-built fort in the Americas. It's like this thing, you go inside, this thing is huge. But it was even bigger back in the day, but unfortunately, due to development and erosion, much of the fort has been taken down, has been demolished and stuff like that. So when you go to San Juan now, you basically have just a small portion of that fort, which is still huge. You can go in there, you pay like $10, you can explore the whole fort for the day, and it's really fascinating. But going back to the Devil's Century box, the Devil's Century box is the oldest part of that fort. You could tell the difference between like the architecture, where a lot of it in the newer part of the fort you see is all built with like stone and bricks and stuff like that. But then this portion of the fort, I would say Puerto Rico has always had like a paranormal craze. Like there's even stories like in the 70s and stuff, but like in the 90s around that was like, that was it.
That was world news there.
Yeah, that was world
Everybody
news.
was talking about that.
That's when people like realized, wait, there's a country called Puerto Rico? Like what? That's when it got really like started popping off.
And do you think with all this stuff, of course, I mean, I'm sure you do, but I was about to say, do you think there's like a lot of spiritual connections behind this? Because I know you'd mentioned all the witch doctors, the voodoo, and would you say Saint? Is that like the Hispanic angel of death? Like they worship her, or am I getting
I know
mixed up?
I'm not too familiar with that in Puerto Rico. I haven't done my research yet on that, but I know that they have a goddess of death. I know, like if you go to like Mexico, they have the Santa Muerte, I believe it is.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. There's probably something similar in Puerto Rico, the Santa Muerte, yes, which is the patron saint of death. Yeah. So yeah, all that stuff is all connected. It's just a mix of like Catholicism and voodoo and Palo Mayombe. It's just a really dark world. I'm not sure if I want to go too deep into it, even in my research, because in the past that I've done research on the occult, it hasn't like ended too well for me. And praise God, he brought me out of that. But yeah, all that stuff is all interconnected. There's just been a lot of influences, especially during the time period where we are exploring the documentary of myths and legends from Old San Juan. A lot of that stuff takes place majority in the 1600s, 1700s, where you had just, you had the slave trade, you had the Catholic Church coming in and building their own churches and sort of, structuring the island to their preferences and stuff like that. So
killing the pagans, and
killing
burning all their books.
Yeah, all that stuff. Even like the genocide of the Tainos, like all that stuff is all connected on a spiritual level. It's really fascinating. It's tragic, but it was also really fascinating in that sense. And that's why, like, I do believe that all this stuff is just just this huge spiritual warfare that has been playing out on this island for just a long, long time.
Well, I'm a big giants guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of what got me into this, fringe space. That was my gateway drug, as some people say. And that's something that I've found just not nation, but global. I about said nationwide, but it was global. Every single culture throughout history has stories of giants. Have you found any giants down in San Juan or Puerto Rico or just anywhere in one of those chains of islands?
I'll have to get back to you on that, but that's actually really interesting. I'm actually going to be having a phone call with Jorge Martin this week, so I could ask him about that, see if he's found anything. If I find anything, absolutely, I'll let you know. But yeah, that's really interesting. I know there was a guest in the past who you brought on who spoke about giants in Aruba, which was really fascinating. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if there are giant things in Puerto Rico. I mean, you find anything in Puerto Rico, just about. There's not one thing at this point that I don't think you can find there. So giants is very plausible, especially with the Tainos and them having just a lot of legends and stories of giants. I wouldn't put it past anybody, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's always been I've been personally fascinated with. And yeah, Heather Arnold, she found all kinds of cool stuff down there in Aruba. And, that's, it's not like next door neighbors, but we're talking about a good general vicinity right there. And that was kind of like a springboard, I think, for a lot of cultures, because I'm a diffusionist. I think we were sailing the seas and trading and exploring and doing all this stuff thousands of years before Columbus.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the natural tides, like from Europe and Africa, lead straight into, Cuba, Aruba, and down there in that Gulf of Mexico area. And these guys, like Columbus, and I can't remember that guy's name now, that Heather had found But she found some of his journals, and he was talking about the giants that they encountered and all this stuff, and then how they were just bouncing around island to island, and some of them, were cannibals, and that area was honestly just because even how the tides took these sailors there, and then they springboarded to South America, to North America, and just kind of went around. So I think that's a high potential for just a smorgasbord of cultures and legends and stories, and even the giants, because they took their ships over here, I believe, the Phoenicians.
Yeah. I mean, as we were talking about it, even in the beginning, the Nazario Collection, like, that's not, at least from what I've seen in the research, like, that's not native to Puerto Rico. Just find that in the middle of nowhere, like stuff that has possible traces to like the Middle East. Like, what is that stuff doing there? And to this day, no one's been able to decipher the actual like language of those stones. And again, take this with a grain of salt. I also believe that they have done some like studies on the material, and it's not native to Puerto Rico, which is really fascinating. But again, don't quote me on that. Like, I do advise your audience, do all your own research. Like, take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt. My word is not gospel, but, look into this stuff. And yeah, you might be surprised with like the stuff that you find out about this country. It's incredibly fascinating. Like Puerto Rico, I always call it like a petri dish, right? Petri dish of just so many different experiments when it comes to just, the grander creation worldview. You want ghosts, you want giants, you want any of that, you're going to find it there most likely. It's such a fascinating country. And if you really want to like understand just how God plays into sort of the world in terms of like how he engages with like pagan societies, or how he engages with just all of these different cosmic forces that are at large, like it's all on that one island. If you want to like a really good starting point, like start in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is just so fascinating, and there's so many stories that I can't even like count them off the top of my head, because they've just been going on for thousands of years, just relentless. Like you had Tainos and even like modern day people having these just really interesting experiences.
Hey, what is happening, my dirty fingernail theologian? If you enjoyed that highlight reel, be sure and check the link down in the description for the Apple and Spotify, and there you can find the full discussion. That is so tasty, it'll make your tongue slap the back of your brains out, Daddy. Torch is high.